And here we are in the final sessions of this year's Data Summit Conference. Just a couple of reminders that you will be receiving a survey shortly after the conference. And again, please do fill it in, share your thoughts with us. We pay enormous attention to this to help us in planning next year's conference. And next year's conference will be May 6 and 7, right here in the beautiful Hyatt Hotel in Boston. If you've been here before, you may know that we generally end the conference with a closing keynote from John O'Brien, which we are going to do, but first, for something completely different, we will turn the podium over to Brian Pichman, who is the Director of Strategic Innovation at the Evolve project. Brian also helps us out with a number of other Information Today conferences, so if you come to any of our other events, you will probably also see Brian doing something similar to what he's been doing at this conference, which is going into rooms and recording some of the things that have been happening. So this is going to be a little bit about a conversation with AI, which is what he's calling it, and sort of talking about what was going on during the last 2 days of Data Summit. So let me turn this over to Brian, who can explain much better than I can about what he's been doing. So Brian, the floor is yours.
You did a great job. I don't even need to be here now.
Oh, shut up.
Hi, everyone. So you probably see me going in and out and like looking weird as I'm going in the back by the little soundboard doing something. And I'll explain all that in like 20 minutes because I know you guys want to hear John speak and then move on with your day. So a little background about me. So what I like to do is I like to use technology to solve problems. My background has been in the education space, the library space, and so that's where money is very limited, as in almost every organization in the world. And so when I play with new technology, I always try to figure out ways to make it cheaper and more affordable to give everyone the opportunity to play and dissect. And so the thing that I'm going to show you today is a very inexpensive process. But before I get there, a few general housekeeping notes. I always like to tell people whenever I talk about like technology, whether it's AI, VR, XR, or whatnot, technology is inherently neutral. You can use it for really good things or it can be used for really bad things. It's really up to the user that's using it as well as developers that develop it. The second tenet is technology is always changing. What I'm showing you today, I'll probably pivot and change by the time I walk out the door. And other times it might be stagnant for a while. And so just keep that in mind as some context and guardrails for our conversations. And technology makes mistakes just like humans do. Things crash, things break, and we're not really sure why sometimes. But the idea is it's not going to be perfect. And so some of the stuff that I show you, this tool that I built that you can all play with at the end, I'm not going to give it to you now because you'll never pay attention to me. You have to wait. I'm going to show it on the slide for half a second, so it's your fault if you miss it. But we'll play with something that was built. So usually when we talk about AI, I get like one of these two reactions when I show people what this thing does. Hopefully you're the more excited individual cat versus the bored cat. In general, before we dive in, some of these contexts and why I went down this road is we can use AI in a lot of different ways. And some of my favorite ways is how we can converse with data sets to find information, find new parallels, because some of my colleagues don't like diving deep into data. So sometimes it's just me by myself, which makes for a lonely road. So having the opportunity to use AI for understanding data has really been great. This is just a fun little slide. If you've never seen it before, this is the top 100 AI companies across vertical AI, which is for a specific industry, or horizontal AI, which is a more wider net developed for people to leverage the technology in a different way. And then this year, CB Insights added infrastructure AI as another component. Understanding data is also very important for building this chat tool, right? And so what's always fascinated me is how much data we generate a day, which is 402 million terabytes of data is generated every single day. And they say because of artificial intelligence, we're going to exponentially increase that by about 25% by 2025. So now they're going to say about 182 zettabytes, which is 1 billion terabytes of data, will be generated in the year, which is about 500 million terabytes a day. So some fun little things that I've learned about data and why data is very interesting. So have you ever played with this app called the Lensa app? You should download it and play it today. So what Lensa does is you allow me and my nerdy friends all upload these images, and it gives you like these really cool futuristic responses. But if you look at mine, they're all sad and depressing looking. And it really bothered me. And so I'm very passive aggressive. So I'll just like reach out and be like, hey, what the hell? Why all my friends have smiley photos generated from this AI tool. Mine are all like, I've seen some stuff. I went to war and back multiple times. And so it turns out that that data set that they used included a Viking data set of like Viking imagery. And if you think about Vikings, I don't know too many that are smiling in their like portraits. And so that's why they're like, well, you're a bearded white dude, you get Vikings. And I was like, that's not fair. So I decided to build my own. And I use my mom as my litmus test when I do stuff with artificial intelligence, because I'm like, if I can trick my mom, it can trick anybody. So I sent her these images. I built it with Hugging Face. It's an open platform, kind of like a Git repo, but for language models, to build professional headshots of me in like different suits and different backgrounds. So I send these to my mom, including these, and her first response was, oh my God, you found someone that looks just like you. And I was like, Mother, which one looks like me? Because I'm offended either way you pick it. So she had no clue. And she's like, where'd you get these outfits? These are really nice. Where did you go? That's a cool background. So it tricked my mom. And so I'm like, well, I'm pretty good at what I do. I've sent it to my brother as well, who's tired of me. And he's like, you look like an idiot. Stop doing this. No one likes you. So a few of these tech tools, I want to show you like a couple tech tools that help me generate this idea. So I like to use technology to make my day better, like everybody else. So I'll show you some of my favorite tools and some of the features that I liked from it that helped build this idea that I want everyone else to do. So before and after. The first tool is called MeetGeek. MeetGeek's been around for, I want to say 4 or 5 years now. And what it does is it joins every single meeting that I participate in, and it takes notes. Very simple, not new technology. It transcribes from auditorial to text. But what they did really well was build a semantic understanding of what's being discussed in those conversations, and gives me a bullet point list of who said what, who's owning what responsibilities from that meetings. And then if I'm in back-to-back meetings all day, I can just chat with all my recordings at once saying, hey, what happened today? I kind of blacked out after 8 a.m. and it's now 5 p.m. What meetings did I say I was going to do something in? And it will actually give me my responses, so I don't have to like read my notes. I don't have to ask anyone. It just does it. So I'm like, I like that. The other tool that made me think differently about how we can leverage AI is Superhuman. Has anyone ever used Superhuman? Like the app, not the movie? None of you. All right, this is cool. You're learning new stuff today. So Superhuman is an email client that can connect to your email inbox. And what it does is it leverages artificial intelligence, everyone's favorite buzzword, to reach your emails. But it gives you like a bulleted list of the emails. So if you have those colleagues that write like a book, and you're like, Jesus, you could have just wrote me like a 1 bullet point response instead of writing me an 8-page novel about why we can't do something. This bulletizes it and gives you a really easy to use summary. But it'll also learn how I talk and type. So as I discuss something or as I type something in an email, it'll be like, hey, I can rewrite this for you with the click of a button. And it'll rewrite it in my voice and my, sarcasm to all my people that I talk to through email. And then it takes it a step farther. And whenever you get stuck on like, oh my God, who sent me that email about the meeting I had to go to and what deliverables I needed to bring, and you're searching your email inbox for like half a day, and you're like, crap, I don't know what to do. So what this tool does is you just ask it. Say, hey, so I give the example of what session am I presenting at the Data Summit. If I completely forgot, I don't have to find the email that Mary D sent. I don't have to find the automated email. I can just ask it. Or ask Mary D directly, and she'd be like, Brian, read your email. But I don't have to be embarrassed anymore. And then you can like ask general. Yeah, I don't remember anything. So these tools were really interesting for me, and I was like, okay, how can I apply this in the conference world? So one of the challenges, or one of the problems in conferences, is there's 3 or 4 sessions going on at once, and there's only one of you. So how do I get into more places than once? And you might go, oh, easy, Brian, my colleague takes a lot of notes. And then I'll ask you, have you read those notes? And you might go, no. Or they'll record it, and how many of us have tons of Zoom recordings that we were going to go to and then we're going to watch later and we never do? It's okay to say yes. We're all friends here. And so there's all these times when I go to a conference, I'm like, oh wow, there's 2 sessions, or I can't remember what I wrote. What the heck? And so I sat down and I thought, how can I fix this problem? And this idea came from a leadership strategy summit that I did in Austria, where we're working with their government and our National Guard to solve leadership disaster challenges. And there's all these really great conversations going on in tandem, but we couldn't capture everyone's ideas at once. So we first looked at using a knowledge graph tool. And this one used to be open source. It's called Infranotice. What Infranotice does really well is you can upload conversations, transcripts, documents, and what it'll do is it'll knowledge graph it for you and plot how those documents connect, how ideas connect. But what it does very interestingly well, and it might be hard to see, in the bottom right, it helps you identify not only the main topics, but how do you bridge the gaps between conversations or between documents or between topics, which in my opinion is where new ideas exist or where innovation takes place. So you can use Infranotice for a brainstorming tool, but you can also use it for, let's digest a bunch of conference information. So something like this. And so it listens to, so I can digest a ton of information, or it will digest a ton of information, find structural gaps in ideas, help me find new ideas from these conversations, and it works incredibly well. So how do we do all this magic? I'm checking my watch, we got time. So the equipment that I brought that plugs into the soundboards it's called a Tascam, and there's an XLR or an audio feed that I can plug directly into most soundboards. If you're like, that's too complicated, because the Tascam allows you to edit pitch and stuff like that. So if a lot of you that were like, I don't need to use a mic, thank you, you made my job harder. But with the Tascam, I could at least make up for some of that audio loss by trying to pull more audio out of the room from the microphones through the Tascam. Another alternative is using Anchor, is one of my favorite companies, and so they have these little hockey pucks. You can put them on people to clip, and you can record individually. So if you had a room of people that were doing brainstorming sessions or workshops and whatnot, and you were in groups, you give everyone a lob, basically. It'll record it all on the device, and then you can upload those transcripts. So one of the important things to me is I don't like data leaving my laptop. And so no one wants their voice somewhere in an LLM somewhere in the world. So don't worry, I got you. There's an app called Whisper, and you can run Whisper entirely offline on your laptop. So it can do all the transcribing for you, so your confidential data, your trade secrets, whatever it may be, never leave your infrastructure. You can download an LLM that'll work as your natural language processor that understands the text and gives you a response. So the way these transcriptions work, the biggest challenge is obviously sound quality. So that's why I use those devices that plug directly into the soundboard. If there was no soundboard, you can place the mics on tables, and there's enough noise canceling where it'll do a decent job and capture where the speaker's at, because they're bi-directional microphones, you can point them. So after it's all transcribed using Whisper, I'm sure you've heard of this word, we basically will then build a RAG, where we point a set of files together with these transcripts that are scrubbed of who's saying what, because we don't want to quote anybody either. It's mostly session topics and ideas. So in a pivot way, you can use LM Studio, excuse me, you can use LM Studio to do everything offline as well. If you've never heard of LM Studio, it's basically you can have ChatGPT running on your laptop without connecting to the internet, and you can do everything offline. You can't download OpenAI's language models, but Facebook or Meta's language models there, and a few others. And it works really well. With a few clicks, you can start asking questions entirely offline. Again, doesn't need the internet. So if you had data that you were worried about going to somebody's cloud, even though they ensure you hey, your data's safe, we encrypt it, you're in your own virtual hub, and you're like, I don't trust people. This would be your solution. You would download the language models from Hugging Face so you can actually see the ontologies behind them, how that data is generated, what are they pulling from, what language models would you like to use and why. You can choose all that through this. I'm gonna like brain dump on you super fast. If you're looking at language models, you're gonna see something called parameters, which are B's, and context length, which are tokens. And they're abbreviated with K's. So the more parameters you have, the more detailed the response you'll get. So if you had like a 7B model and you ask who's the first president of the United States, it'll just say George Washington. But if you had something like a 65 byte model, it might say George Washington was the first president in 1789-ish. It wouldn't say ish, it'll give you the direct, I'm just guessing. I think it's 1789. And he was the first president of the United States, blah, 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 blah. And so the more bytes you have, the more detailed you get in the response, which is important when you're looking at if you're doing something and you're building it. Doing it this way allows you to avoid like what they call AI model degradation or AI model collapse. So the more you interact with an LLM, so the more, for instance, you interact with ChatGPT, it probably starts responding in a very similar way over and over and over again. Because the LLM is learning about how you like to talk to it and what kind of answers it needs, because it's going to use those tokens and that context length. And so doing it this way, you can blow away the LLM and then re-download it really quick and easy and kind of have like a clean slate where your RAG is still intact. So we built the chatbot. And so the way this chatbot's designed, it's not supposed to look at things like from a transcriptional standpoint, but it's supposed to look at things from a main idea. And I have processed all of day ones. It takes about a half hour to an hour to do an entire day's worth of transcription conversion and putting into a RAG. And so you can ask it to compare sessions by typing in the session number. You can ask questions, and the idea is it's supposed to give you an engaging conversation. Now we'll live demo it super fast. And then a fun fact, if anyone ever sends you something with the word delve in it, it was generated by AI, 100%. I guarantee it. Because nobody uses the word delve, we use the word dive. No, I've never seen you. So here's your conference assistant. So pull out your phones. You've been texting on them anyway. Perfect. Or you take a picture too, you can click on it later. So this will bring you to the chatbot. So let me end this. So when you get to it, if all goes well, tell me. So I like open source, so tell me which session talked about. Don't embarrass me, thank God. And so it gives me the session that talked about open source. I don't believe the word open source was listed anywhere in the program, but someone talked about it in one of the transcripts. So now I can dive in further. Yeah, what apps did they use? And for those that were in that session, hopefully this is correct. If it isn't, just stay quiet. But now what the model is designed not to pull information from anywhere else. I'm using an LLM to do the natural language processing, but that's it. So I can ask, tell me about CamWorld. And it redirects you. Hey, no, my focus is on the data summit. And you can keep on trying. Like I've stress tested this enough where it does a pretty good job at diverting back to this conversation. You can ask about like, you know, so this is available to you. You can take it home with you. It'll be your new best friend. If you have no friends, now you have one. And you can talk to it. And again, it's designed to continue to ask questions and dive further and further in. And if you want to blow away that model that you've been tinkering with, because obviously now it's going to have this hint of open source because that's part of its token memory. So it'll probably bring up open source a few more times. So to blow it away, you just hit start a new chat, and then all that model information disappears, and you start with a fresh, clean slate. So that's the tool that we built for you all to play with and tinker. It's not going to be perfect, but the idea is this is a good proof of concept that only took about an hour's worth of work using open source tools, all off my laptop. Didn't have to go online other than putting a chatbot portal together.
Was that an hour for each day or an hour?
Hour for the whole day.
So an hour for
Day one and
yesterday and an hour for
yep,
today.
I'll have today's done probably this evening
Okay.
after I drink. I also loaded all the information in for Notice, so you can kind of see what that looks like too. Let me zoom in. I'll have Tuesdays tonight probably, or tomorrow morning. Oh no, sorry, Tuesdays was the workshops. I don't have anything from the workshops now. So high level, the way InfoNotice works, if you ever load it up, you'll want to switch from low-level ideas to high-level ideas. Otherwise, it's way too much data, unless if you have like a small brainstorming session that lasts about an hour. But we're looking at, how many hours worth of programming was day one? 16 hours worth of programming. And so you'll have a lot of data. So if you break it out, it shows us the main ideas as data governance, AI models, speaker interaction, storytelling dynamics. If I wanted to see if a specific conversation was biased or unbiased, I can dive in. Oops, come on. And it'll continue like refreshing and giving me how those ideas connect. And then the last piece, so this is called the analytics insight, or the analytics. If you want AI insights, click on that. And that'll tell you like what differs, what are the gaps. And you can choose challenge, assertion, etc. And you can choose what you're looking for in your data sets. So this is another great tool to play with. This one is a license thing, so I can't give everyone a public link. But if you can play with it on your own, and it's pretty fun. That's all. Here's my contact info if you need it. So thanks everyone. Hope you have fun playing.